He's not evil, but a lot of his friends have accessed the dark web. He had to give it a go. Little did he know that this would be the last time he'd ever experience freedom again. He had heard of the deep web horror stories of disgusting websites, hacking, people finding your address, but he never believed them since his college friends seemed fine. And even if the stories were true, maybe he could find them and report them to the police. I mean, nothing bad ever happened to his friends, at least nothing that he knew of, so he decided to give it a go. He asked a friend to come over and help him set it up. His friend gave him a brief rundown and made it very clear that when he was using the hidden wiki that he kept it on censored mode so that it would be less likely for him to see something he didn't want to see. He listened to him, at first anyway. But after a couple weeks of using the deep web, he felt like a pro. He made friends and even bought substances for personal use. But this is where he went too far. He had become cocky and was ready to dig deeper into the dark web, so he turned off the censored mode. It took a while, mostly because Tor is a bit slow, and many of the links just led to dead web pages. But eventually he stumbled onto a site called He had a fairly strong stomach, or so he thought. But after looking through a few different chat rooms, he noticed how sick this site really was. The people in these chat rooms were actual killers, bragging about some of the things that they had done. One by the name of Culture045 had the stage in one of the chat rooms. He was detailing his break-in, his actions painting the picture of a psychopath. It was so crazy he didn't even believe it at first. This guy was probably just making it all up on the spot. That was until he sent the pictures. These were the most horrifying pictures that he had ever seen. That's when he couldn't hold his anger in anymore. This was the biggest mistake he had ever made. He had seen enough and typed in the chat room window, "You people are sick and deserve to die. How can you sleep at night?" Immediately, people began making fun of him, saying that he was just as helpless and ignorant as the little girl in the pictures, and that he should get off the big boy part of the internet. They began saying he was a wimp and calling him an empath. That was when Culture045 started typing. He said,
"Really? Where do you live, buddy? I'm sure everybody would love to see you on this site."
He then replied to the chat room threatening them by saying, "I'm calling the police and having this site shut down." Before he could even type another sentence, a new chat box appeared. In it, someone named Admin 1inch typed in the box. He said, "Call the cops and you will regret it." So he didn't type anything in the box and reached for his cell phone. What happened next still haunts him to this day. His phone displayed a new message, which read,
"Call the police and you're dead."
Sent from a blank identifier, not even listed as unknown number. He looked back at his laptop and saw his webcam light turn on. He quickly covered it but noticed a photo of himself, phone in hand, displayed on the screen. He got wide-eyed and froze for a moment when the admin typed again.
"Put the phone down right now and uncover your webcam."
He put his phone down but kept the webcam covered. Then the admin typed again.
"Okay then, be like that."
Immediately after this, his full name, age, and address appeared in the chat box, followed by a menacing message.
"It would be a shame if you and your college buddies went missing, wouldn't it?"
He didn't listen to him. He shut down his laptop and called his friend David to come over straight away. Living just a few houses down, David was able to run over immediately, and they called the police as soon as he got there. That was when he received another text message. The message read,
"Look out your window."
His heart dropped. He knew exactly what was going to be there. They both crouched over to the window, slowly peeking their heads up, trying not to be seen. And that's when they saw him. A man in a parking lot leaning up against a white van. The man had a phone in his hand, and when he looked over at him, he nodded back. The phone went off again. He got another message.
"Turn off your laptop now."
In a panic, they shut the blind, unaware of the grave error they were making. They didn't know what else to do. They were in a state of panic. A man outside their house and a whole chat room of killers coming for them. Despite the police saying they were on their way, they didn't sound too convinced on the phone. He can't imagine a story about a killer from the dark web is going to be too believable for the police. Another text came in and read,
"I'm coming in if you don't turn it off."
He knew he shouldn't do it. His webcam was on. If he complied, he would be playing right into the hands of a psychopath. Banging began on the door. They both freaked out and looked out the window again. But sure enough, the man and the white van were gone. The banging on the door got more and more violent until eventually they heard a horrible scratching sound. It lasted a few more minutes, and then they heard footsteps walk down the hall and eventually fade away. He received another text.
"We will be back."
When the cops arrived, they told him to look at his door. He followed them back out into the hallway and saw engraved in their door his name. The police began investigating the whole building, and they even had a tech police officer come in and look at his computer. He scanned the laptop, finding and removing malicious software. Your laptop's core files have been deeply compromised, he concluded. They did a complete wipe of his laptop, and he looked at his phone as well. Cops said they couldn't do much else to help because they couldn't tell where the messages had come from. But they said they would keep cops in the area just in case this happened again. He could barely sleep that night. He still went to school the next day with David with him by his side at all times. Both of them were petrified. The police had told them they were looking into the situation and ensuring their safety around the clock, but what could they really do if someone just came up behind them out of nowhere? They somehow survived the whole day of school. David had to stay a little later to finish up a project, so he went home and collapsed from exhaustion. But that was when he heard it. He heard screams coming from his laptop. He ran over to the desk and lifted up his screen. His wallpaper was now changed, and the application that was open on the screen looked like a live stream. He tried, but he couldn't exit out, and the live stream was coming from a boy's house. The camera focused on a young boy, around 13 or 14, who was intently staring at his computer screen. A chilling realization then hit. "That's David's brother," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible. A voice on the live stream, sinister and mocking, addressed him directly.
We're so glad you could join us, John.
His heart pounded as he understood the implication. They were performing this horror for him, and they wanted him to know it. John watched in horror, frozen, as the closet door in the background of the stream began to inch open. They orchestrated this madness just for me, John thought, as a figure emerged from the shadows, toolbox in hand. He can't even explain the horrors that he witnessed after that. It was disgusting. He noticed that in the chat box, several people were cheering the man on and requesting for him to do different things to David's brother. He threw up all over the floor, and when he looked back up at the screen, he saw the chat box people typing horrible things like, "Oh my god, that was so wonderful. Thanks so much for doing this." While reading, he saw someone named Culture045 type into the box. "Thanks for the request, John. We did this for you." After that, the program closed on its own. John was sweating, breathing heavy, and feeling sick. Throughout the entire thing, he didn't realize that his phone had gone off several times. John looked at it, and the most hateful, mean messages were coming from his friends and family. He asked his mom what was wrong, and she texted back, "You sent that sick, disturbing live stream to everyone. You did this to David's brother. I can't believe who you are." Those monsters framed him. He saw the blue flashing lights outside, and he knew it was over for him. They had fabricated the whole thing, and there was no way the police would believe it was some people from the dark web. Take John's advice and never go on the dark web.